Alright, hello. Before the conventional DAW, there were these things called trackers. Now, what is a tracker, you might ask? A tracker is just a form of music sequencer, kind of started by the Amiga, which just has a vertical timeline rather than the kind of standard horizontal timeline. You might be familiar with trackers such as Player Pro, the Poly-N tracker, or Renoise, which is what we're going to be looking at today. And if you've watched my channel before, then you'll know I'm a big fan of Aphex Twin Square Pusher, all the kind of IDM or brain dance greats, and they used trackers a lot, especially back in the 90s, and so did jungle artists and some D&B artists, all used trackers as they were readily available. For example, Aphex Twin used the tracker Player Pro during the Drux album, and I believe it was his main sequencer throughout that whole album. So, of course, if you're into that kind of old school braindance or old school jungle, then you should really get into trackers because the workflow lends itself to those genres. Now, today's video we go through a kind of introduction to Renoise and make some utter nonsense. Let's just get into it, and finally, thank you to my Patreons. You're all very cool. Now, let's go and make some utter bullshit. Alright, so here we are in Renoise. This is where we sequence stuff. This is kind of like the scenes in Ableton. Over here are instruments. This is our browser, along with the second part of the browser, where we can customize our folders. Here we've got like an oscilloscope area for all of our instruments. Very nice. Genius. And we also have these visualizers here too, if you want to look cool and high-tech. Anyway, then we have our BPM and lines per beat, which is how many lines are per beat. As you can see, the highlighted lines are our quarter notes, and everything else is the lines per beat part. We can then click escape, and this red box appears around our sequencing area, and we can just put our notes in. Just like that. Lovely. Alright, this is our sampling area where we can build instruments. As you can see, here are all of the samples in this instrument. This instrument is one by the Renoise library, and I should also mention, if you alt-click any window, we can focus in on that window and then use the arrow keys to scroll through things. And that is highlighted with the little orange corners. Really handy when scrolling through samples. Here we have our modulation window for our instruments, and as you can see, this instrument has its own pre-made modulation presets. So everything is set to the neutral preset. But let's change it to the pitch down one, and as you can see, here we have volume, panning and pitch, and that's where we can put in any of these modulation modules like the operand or the envelopes or the ADHSR or AHDSR. Anyway, like here we're in panning, and let's just make a little random panner. We get an LFO, put it onto noise, which also has a very nice oscilloscope too. And we can kind of hear it panning, so let's bring up the amplitude. And then bring the frequency far down, so every hit will be somewhere different. And modulation is as easy as that. And later on we'll make a very simple subtractive synth. Anyway, now I'm just creating a very basic beat just by putting notes in, just so we have a starting point for everything else. Very cheesy, very good, we love it. Okay, so now we're going to try and use some velocity, which is these two little yellow dots here. It's not really velocity, it's volume. And everything in Renoise is done in hexadecimal values, which are 0 through to 9, and then A through to F, and then back around with the first integer changing up each value. So I just thought I'd mention that, as everything in Renoise is hexadecimal, and we're just going to put in different volume values. I'm just kind of going about randomly and not thinking too much. I just want to show you an example of it working. It's a bit extreme, but you get the point. Alright, and now we have effects, or command effects, or whatever you want to call them. We have sample ones, track ones. Right now we only have the mixer, but also global commands like lines per beat, tempo, things like that. So let's go and grab our reverse one, which is B. So B00 is reverse, B01 is forward. We can just about hear it, so let's add in another effect lane and use the sample pitch up command, which is U and then whatever value you want to put in. That's a bit much because it's speeding the sample up quite a lot to pitch it that much. So let's put in a lower value. Much better. Lovely. Alright, and now I'm just going to put that random panning preset thing we made onto all of the tom hits. Pretty cool. Pretty cool and really easy to do once you know the commands and what to do. However, this gets messy. So let's copy and cut all of that information, go into our sampler, and we have these little boxes down here. These are our phrases. So we can have a phrase window like this. Let's paste our pattern into it. Lovely, it's in there. And you can use different modes. There's program or key map. Program allows you to put in a command to trigger phase whatever. I hate it. So I'd rather just key map it, where you can drag and drop a phrase onto a key. And it's that easy. And there it is on that key. And we still have all of our other samples free to use. So let's grab another phrase. I think this is phrase 6. That's our phrase. Lovely. And now we can just put in the phrase note. And it plays the phrase, which just cleans things up a bit. So let's add another scene and put the other phrase there. Lovely. However, you cannot put other samples on the same track as your phrase like this, because it cuts off the trigger of the phrase. If that makes sense, right? No good. Let's create another note lane and we can put them in there. So then the phrase carries on and our other samples are introduced too. So with this, you know, you can have a really complex phrase going on and still use one-shots from the kit afterwards. But let's speed things up. Yeah, that's better. And we also did volume for those clap samples, so sorry, I forgot to record that bit. Now, everyone's favourite. Let's get some drum breaks and figure out different ways to chop them. I like this one. Very, very funky. And it's got a lot of rides and whoa. So, anytime we press a different key, it changes the pitch. What do we do about that? Well, first off, down here, let's Beatsync our sample. So click Beatsync, and then let's just check if that is synced to our beat with Beatsync. It looks like it is, naturally. But okay, what are these numbers and how do they work? So this is 128 and there are 16 beats in the sample. We multiply that by our lines per beat, and then as you can see we got 128. So all it is beats in the sample times by the lines per beat, and then the Beatsync will work. So if you had a 4 beat beat, and then times that by 8, your Beatsync would have to be 32. And now we are beat synced, and any key we press, same pitch, same speed. So you can go to slice and, you know, manually go through each sample and slice them, which is a bit tedious in my opinion. That one's a bit clicky, isn't it? Or you can do this automatic slicing, and the percentage next to it is kind of the transient detector. As you can see, it's very sensitive, even at 50%. We got that click at the end. How would we get rid of that if we're working like this? We need to select all of our samples and right click and destructively render the samples. Then find that clicky one again. Okay, highlight that click and then press this fade out button here. Bam, click gone. We can also draw in the sample. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing, but I like it. But I like to slice drums like this. You just put in a note and use the S command. So S10 is just before that snare. So S10 works as that snare. So you can go into your sample and see what number certain hits are at within the sample, and then do S, that number, and it'll trigger that part of the sample. And now we're just going to get our kicks and pitch them down a bit. Bit of reversing, lovely. And now all these snares, let's try and make a glitchy roll kind of thing with the kind of volume fading out, like a little brrr. Okay, it's not as fast and glitchy as I'd like it. So how can we sort that? I like to make a separate phrase for glitches. So here, all we've got is a bunch of samples playing slice 10, and then we can re-trigger slice 10. And re-triggering is just, it re-triggers the sample, however many times, depending on your value. Whoa, see, that's proper glitchy. And now, I'm just going to mess around with different values of this re-trigger command. And I prefer to make glitches like this if my lines per beat is kind of small, say 4, 8, maybe 16. I normally work with my lines per beat being 32. But yeah, you know, if you're using a smaller lines per beat, you can just go into the phrase editor and make glitches. Whoa! So we definitely got glitchy. Very nice. And now we can just trigger that phrase, which is a glitch on its own. As you can see, with the caps lock button, it just puts off where the note should be, so that just cuts off whatever is playing. We can also re-trigger phrases, so if you have a phrase which is just re-triggers, you can re-trigger the re-triggers. Whoa. Okay, so now I'm just going to carry on making a little breakbeat. Have a little snare roll there with the pitch going up. And it's all snares because it's all slice 10. Nice. I also bumped up the tempo to 190. They don't sound good together. But you know, it's a bit fun anyway, isn't it? And to be honest, that's just what I like about Renoise. Just putting in notes and experimenting with the different commands. But now what if we wanted to automate something? Well, we could go down here, go to the effect we're using, and then get the parameter command, or whatever parameter command is being used. So like cutoff is 12. And then we could tediously write something in. as you can see I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to just get a smooth ramp up of the cutoff. But it's not all that smooth. Using commands is great for a stepped automation or whatever, but let's just go down here, click cutoff, and we can simply just write in a line of automation. Easy, smooth, lovely. Another thing is, if your lines per beat are really small, your automation commands are going to be really small because you have less space to write them down in. So we can automate with lines, or we can draw in points. Or you can download some tools like this Automasher here. Now, what are tools? Tools are basically, you know, the new Ableton SDK extensions thing? Yeah, it's that, but Renoise has had them for years. And there is a great community of really smart people making really good tools. So yeah, if you're going to use Renoise, please check out those tools. They are very interesting and very fun to use. Most of them are free too. So I'd highly recommend that, as that is a big part of Renoise. Anyway, we've made a fun little breakbeat, haven't we? Alright, now what if we want to do some melodic stuff? Now, what I'm about to do is very much Baby's first Renoise track, but we're going to get a chord sting or chord pad, and then you can just pitch it up and down the keyboard like old school samplers would do. So this just transposes whatever chord up or down, and then we're just going to use our Aphex commands to make it interesting. And I'm going to create this stutter thing by putting an off note after every on note. You know, a bit over the top breakcore. Very silly, but very fun. And I'm just going to continue to do that. And that's really easy, because the sample is already a chord. Let's just transpose the chord up and down, you know? But you know, that kind of technique is very old school jungle, and you know, a lot of breakcore anyway. There I'm creating a fake stutter by using the volume commands rather than having to turn on and off the sample trigger. You know, it works. And then we can go into our modulation window, create an envelope for it. That release ended up sounding like a good echo. Wow. Now, it doesn't really work for this sound, as a lot of our sustain or release of the sample gets pitched up and pitched down, which obviously you can't hear when it's... Whoa! When the envelope cuts it off preemptively. But let's make another one of those random panning things. Oh, no. Let's make a little key tracking panner thing. You can change the bias by changing the input, and then it's got all these different ways of applying your modulation. I'm then adding some chorus and some bit crusher to it just to make it sound oldish. It's very cheesy. This is very my first breakcore.wav. Anyway, what if we want to do something a bit more intentional and like a keyboard? Well, Renoise has a bunch of these single wave or single cycle waveforms, which we can just use as a sample, pitch them up, and then we've got it on our keyboard. It's just that easy. Then go into your volume, give it an envelope. Already, basic subtractive synth. Then we get a filter on it. Beautiful. And then I'm just doing that random panning thing again, because what's a good pad synth if you can't randomly pan stuff. And if you want to do unison, I like to just duplicate the sample and then fine-tune one of them. And there you go, big nice unison sound. Let's do that once more. Tune it in the opposite direction now. And it's a bit loud, and if you want to sort that out within the instrument, the volume that is, then go into your modulation and go to volume and bring down the input. And now you can save this instrument as is. You can also map macros to the fine tune or the cutoff or whatever, but I didn't do that. Then I'm just going to add a little delayed vibrato onto it by putting an LFO into the pitch section. Alright, and now I'm just putting in kind of like 8th note arpeggio kind of thing. But that is way too fast. Way too fast. So we can right click it, go into this window, and now we have a bunch of kind of like note modifiers, like this expand one. And with melody stuff like this, I like to group the track and then have one track be unaffected notes and the other track be affected notes. And when I mean effects, I mean the sample commands. So we can pitch certain parts of the chord up, certain parts down. But I hate how this sounds. A lot. Let's try... This is awful. Let's try and make it minor. There is a scale option here, so natural minor. It hasn't changed anything, and that's because now we need to rewrite it in, because the scale just changes the scale of our keyboard, not what is already written down. And that's a really over-the-top pitch bend up, but hopefully you can hear kind of... Oh, also you can scroll whilst you're playing a section. Anyway, last kind of thing I want to show you is my favourite command. It is the ZL command, which changes the lines per beat. And that was 64 lines per beat, so let's change it to 4. And now we're getting half time, because our initial lines per beat was 8. So now it's not tempo changing, it's like metric modulation. So let's add, in our first window, let's go to 8, as that was our initial one. And then a cool halftime bit. And let's say the next window, let's put it at 6. Get a weird triplet thing going on, I guess. This sounds really messy, and musically it doesn't make sense, but let's have a listen. This sucks. Alright, so instead of listening to that, I did this in like 10 minutes instead, so yeah, here you go. So, we start with some bass. Then we have our first drum break. Lovely. Then our second drum break. And then our drum effects, which is like time-stretched phrases and the 16th phrases. Here's how you do a time stretch. You slowly go through the slices. Then we got some vocals. And all together, we get this. Alright, that is much better than what we initially had. Good God. But you know, nothing new except for the time stretch snare, but it's pretty easy. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I apologise that it was quite messy. I really recommend buying Renoise. I think it's like one of the cheapest DAWs, unless you count Reaper, but you know, you have a unlimited free day trial for Reaper really. Either way, get into Renoise. Get into trackers, there are some good free ones out there too. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for my Patreons again. And if you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you want to see more Renoise tutorials on this channel, because I promise I kind of know how to use it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.